So he just finished a lesson and he's feeling awesome. Like, they got a lot of technique work done, some things that needed to be cleaned up. They worked on his setup, they worked on his club face, they worked on his pivot and how he's turning. So there was a few things that really came together and was like, wow, I'm really striping this. I really feel awesome. And these are my checklist of drills and things to do. And he's gearing up, preparing for a tournament. So in practice, it's like really going through this checklist, really doing the drills, really doing everything. So he can't help but start to feel a little bit conflicted though, because now he's getting ready to play in a tournament and he's working on his mental side of his game also. And in the mental side, he knows, has been like read in these books that you shouldn't be thinking about the swing. You should be doing this all from the subconscious. So as he's preparing, like he's starting to feel a little bit conflicted. Like, what should I really be committed to? I've been practicing these things. I've been doing this. So I'm going to go out and I'm just going to swing freely. But the problem is like, there's no commitment to that. Like, he's feeling a little bit nervous, like almost like it's hard to let go of the things he's been training. So as he goes through the first couple holes, he feels like out of control. Like, I don't know what I'm committing to. Like, I'm just trying to swing because I believe that's right. I believe that's what's right mentally. So as he feels out of control, he's losing it and he's hitting some poor shots, and like stress starts to overwhelm him. He's getting a little bit anxious. He's feeling a little bit nervous. So now he goes back to like, okay, I'm gonna go back to the drills I was doing and think about where my swing needs to be. So now he steps up to another shot. He's like, all right, I got this. I'm just gonna go through how I was thinking about this in the range. And as soon as he mishits a shot, now he's like super stressed because now he has no idea where his thoughts need to be. And because he was working on a couple different things, like now he doesn't know what to commit to, and there's just the feeling of out of control like is overwhelming him. He's getting stressed and trying to find any little sense of like, if I can do this, like I can hit shots. Why am I not doing what I was doing on the range? So the round keeps going on and he's striving to find that sense of control, to find that sense of like what I was doing when I was in my practice. This is very common for players to get conflicted in this. And in this episode, we're going to talk about swing thoughts, if they are really good or bad, and what you should be thinking about and how to train that. And that's all coming up right now. Welcome to the Go Low Show, where it's about golf, grit, and your pursuit of greatness. My name is Kyle Olderink, and I am your co-host along with my man, John Weir, mental game coach extraordinaire. And in this podcast, we're going to show you everything that you need to know about how to go low in your golf game. And we're excited to bring you that show right now.
Expect anything different?
Is it his time?
Yes! In your life have you seen anything like that? Well, here it comes.
All right, it's time to go. All right, John. So in this episode, we're getting into, the old debate of swing thoughts, if they're good or bad. And, one thing, because I kind of double as both, I'm a technical coach, but I'm also obviously a heavy on the mental side as well and performance. But I've always found that, people train in a very mechanical way, and then they're trying to learn how to not be mechanical when they play, because most of the mental game stuff is, clear your mind, react to targets. So I feel like players have a hard time bridging that gap sometimes. So what do you see with that?
Well, I definitely think that players run into a lot of stress trying to figure out how to take their practice onto the course, and this transference, or taking it and doing what you've been doing on the range and training it and taking it to the performance setting, is sometimes very difficult for players. And I think players run into a lot of confusion because of what you're saying with the mental books versus what they're doing in their practice. This is something that we've really been working hard on and figuring out about the mental game, and we're really excited to be launching Mental Golf Type soon. And Mental Golf Type is really about understanding how individual minds are working out there, because some players out there are going to thrive with a swing thought. Other players are going to thrive more with a picture. Other players are going to thrive more with a feel. And like the golf swing, there's no one mind that's completely the same. And so what we want to look at is figuring out, what do you do well, and are you a player that is which category do you fall into? And this is going to help to bring a lot more clarity to players. There's some players that will actually do better if they model what they're doing on the course after what they're doing on the range. And then there's going to be a smaller pocket of population that has to try to transition between this practice and play mode. And a lot of these mental books out there are trying to make players do stuff that isn't necessarily the best thing for them. And they're often approaching it from this kind of generalized approach or an idealized approach into full automation. So when you're looking at having to take control and do something that you feel good about over the ball, it's really important to kind of key in. Are you a visualization guy, like a picture player? Are you a swing thought or kind of a feel or a technical player? And if you're one of those two, we want to be focusing our attention a lot more on that on the golf course. And it's going to help to be able to transition what you're doing with your technical practice and bring it more into a performance setting.
Yeah, John. So, I mean, obviously we're pumped about Mental Golf Type. We've been teasing it a little bit because at the end of the day, it's about what you are confident in and what you feel like you can control. Because essentially, and everybody knows what I'm talking about, when you're off and you're struggling, you feel out of control. You may not be able to control your swing. You don't have control over where the ball's going. You don't have control over your thoughts, and that becomes a super stressful thing. And as you've heard in other episodes, we'll reiterate it, is stress is the number one performance killer. But when we're in control and we know if you're the swing thought player and you make your move correctly, you're going to hit the ball exactly where you want to hit it, you're going to feel super prepared out there. And at the end of the day, again, it's about what can you control, and people are going to be different. If you're the person that, I know if I get to the top this way, I can get the club to hit the ball the way I want to, or I know if, like we were talking about Dustin Johnson in a previous episode, he talked about, when I try to fade, I just aim left and fade it. Like, so he's more on just what the shape of the shot's doing and reacting more to that image or visualization. So it's important to understand, you, and it doesn't have to be a certain way. And again, if anybody hasn't seen that video I put of on our Instagram account at the Go Low Show of Tiger and Jason Day talking about how they see targets differently. I mean, you got two of players who have been number one in the world, Jason Day wasn't as dominant as Tiger, but still awesome player. And they talk about how they see things totally different. And Jason Day literally goes, I would be off tour if I saw it like you. Those are two guys that know themselves so well. And I think that's very cool. And that's kind of what we want to help players figure out, is their own intricacies and how you can get yourself under control and really at your peak performance mode.
Yeah, and one of the big things going back on the swing thought idea is 80% of the population we have found do better if they have a singular idea that they're looking to accomplish in their shot. Now, a general rule of thumb we teach all of our players out there is if you have 2 swing thoughts or more, it's too many. So if you do have a lot going on with your golf swing, it's best that you can work that out in your practice swings and behind the ball. But you really need to prioritize it to one main idea. And 80% of the population do better if they're kind of modeling what they're doing in practice. And we did a lot of focus band research with this as well, and showed how the brain was much more relaxed modeling their practice on the course versus trying to create a picture or react to a target. So many players, when they're practicing or doing their technical work, they have their alignment rod, they know they're aimed well, and then they're focused on what their coach is having them work on, that one move in their golf swing, and they're pure in it, and they get better and better. They really need to be taking that same focus and that same mentality to the golf course. Oftentimes when they get to the golf course, their mind starts wandering into outcomes rather than focusing on what they need to accomplish with their golf swing. And again, if you have one thought or one idea that you're looking to accomplish, the mind still goes very relaxed, as the focus band shows, and we find ourselves hitting a lot better shots. For 80% of the population or golf population out there, golf isn't a reactionary game. It's proper alignment and focused with precision on either a move or a simple feel. And you're going to find that yourself performing a lot better if you're one of those types of players transitioning this way to the golf course. This very small population of people perform kind of like Bubba, where they have good visualization in these pictures, or what Jason Day has really cultivated with his visualization ability. This really makes up a small population of people. Now, for this group of people, they do better whenever they're picturing a target and allowing their body to respond to it. And so an easy way to kind of figure out which one you're more like, whether you're more of a picture player or more of a kind of a swing thought person, think about what happens when you're not hitting it well. So if you're a picture guy or a picture woman out there, and that's the way you prefer to play, when things are stressed out or you're not performing well, you probably get overwhelmed with swing thoughts. And if you're really good with swing thought and having that one move to be focused on, or that feeling, you're going to find yourself drifting a lot more into outcomes when you're stressed. And so it's going to be more picture dominant. And if you notice this, these are indicators that your mind is actually slipping into some stress out on the course. And you're going to find your swing performance suffers. Because when we're in stress, the mind's active. And on the focus band, it's red. And you can see when players are in that state, they just don't execute with the same level of fluidity and synchronization and striking the ball the way that they do when their brain is relaxed and at peace.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And like piggybacking on that is when you said, I just want to reiterate, the singular thought or the singular move is really important, because a lot of what can happen to players on both sides, it goes back to their practice, and they get cluttered because they end up allowing too many things to pop in there. So they're literally spending their time, tinkering and trying different swing thoughts. And, you really have to practice your thought process. And we've stressed that in like every episode, is defining what you do and practicing what you do. So there's a portion of your practice that should be on the technique regardless of who you are, because you still got to drill those good things in. Now from there, though, it's like, all right, now practicing literally, how do I get over this and stick to that singular thought? And can I hit, a 10 out of 10 to different targets on the range and actually do that? Because if you don't practice that, regardless of who you are, you don't practice your process, like it's not going to translate. But essentially, like that's a really big issue, and how swing thoughts can really start to bog people down is because they're practicing in so many different ones are popping in, they never know what to commit to. So as soon as that swing thought fails them on the course, like now they're just bailing. Like what now? They're just freaking out, looking for any sense of control. Like what can I do? Trying to find any way to hit good shots, and they totally abandon what they do. So, I mean, how often have you seen that?
That's a very common thing that people go through on the course. I kind of called it guessing and testing when it gets into that state where they miss hit a shot. Now they're starting to guess and test. And when you're in that guessing and testing state or tinkering too much during a performance setting, I mean, at this point, we're not competing, we're practicing. And so that can be very detrimental for a lot of players if they get into the habit of that. So it's important, though, that we're always getting down to the priority if you're a person who's relying on a swing thought. So you always have to be asking yourself the question, what's the bottom line here? What's that one thing that if I'm aimed proper and I do right is going to produce the desired outcome? And that's the easiest way to keep bringing your mind back to that singular idea. If you're seeing two things, do it in your rehearsal and then prioritize. What's the most important thing? Because if you're holding on two or more things in your mind, you're literally slowing down your body's reaction time. And with a golf swing, going on in like 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds, having two thoughts that you're maintaining or trying to accomplish becomes too many and too overwhelming. So continue to ask yourself, what's the priority in my swing and what do I know works? Again, it comes back to some of the questioning that you're asking yourself in this situation. Rather than guessing and testing by saying, what's wrong? What do I need to fix? It keeps the emphasis on the things going wrong in your swing. A better question to ask is, when was the last time I was hitting it great? And what was my focus on? Do that. And if you ask yourself these types of questions or go back and say, well, what was I doing with my coach when I was hitting it well? Get back to that bottom line. Now, if you're a person who is more of a picture person and you need to have better clarity, I would suggest that you start asking yourself more questions about, what type of shot do I see, or starting to describe the ball flight or describing what your targets are, and try to use your questioning or your language, verbalizing your shot will help to regenerate a picture. It's going to be tough sometimes because your tendency will want to be to get into your swing. But if you talk more about your target, if you're a picture dominant player, you're going to find yourself more easily able to shift. So again, one target idea or a good clear picture, and always be working not in the guessing and testing mode, but prioritizing and getting back to that good question. What's the bottom line thing that makes my swing work well? And you're always going to be better off committing to that on the course and trying to do it better, even if it's not working well, than changing things up and starting to make it practice.
Yeah, I love that. And so now, we want to kind of get into a few things that, the listeners can take away and really take with them on this. And, the first thing is, regardless, is simplicity is really the key. Can you take the idea of what you're trying to do and boil it down to something so easy and so simple and so basic that you can repeat it all of the time? And it's going to be different. Like you said, people are going to feel it different. They're going to think about a position different. They're going to see a target different. But this is like really where you got to start to understand yourself. And this is where, Mental Golf Type is really going to be an awesome program. We're excited to show you. But, can you boil that down to just in the simplest nature? So if you're getting to the top of your swing in a certain way, can you just feel the face a certain way? Can you get to the finish a certain way? And that's it. And can you commit to that? Because essentially, I can guarantee you, if you've struggled in the past and you start to go through, you probably can't answer this with a yes. You probably have never been able to get through an entire round with a singular thought or a singular goal. Like, everything starts to shift, everything starts to change. You're probably all over the place with your thoughts. And again, and I was that player too, is that I was kind of always taught to clear your mind, think freely, but yet I was trained a little more on the technical side. And the stuff I was learning was great. Like, I always felt great leaving a lesson. I knew my swing was in a good spot, but then I was kind of learning on the mental side and reading books and stuff to get out there and think clearer. And I would feel kind of out of control. Like, I would feel like, if I'm not supposed to think about my swing, how do I know, like, it's in the spot where it's going to hit the shot that I've just practiced? And that was always like a little bit of a disconnect for me, which kind of led me down the search I've been on my entire basically professional career to understand this stuff on a much, much deeper level. But, again, that's really the biggest thing is, can you boil this down to everything in the simplistic nature? Because that's where you're going to feel a sense of control. And when you feel a sense of control, your confidence is going to skyrocket. Would you agree?
On your point about, clearing your mind and just performing, everybody out there listening has to understand, those are the zone states. Those are those days where our mind is completely blank and things are just kind of happening. Those are rare days. And so we have to learn how to take, control of our mind in the proper way so that we can perform consistently. And so having a swing thought isn't a bad thing. Oftentimes players, they fight with themselves. I shouldn't be thinking this way. I shouldn't have these types of thoughts. But again, what my main takeaway for players is review some of your really good rounds, and take some time just to process and try to get deep inside of your own mind and say, where was my focus at address? And where was my focus during these shots? And oftentimes you're going to be surprised that you may have had a simple feel, or maybe you were focused on a simple tempo, or, good contact even. Sometimes these simple jobs are all that we need to feel control and execute with a lot of confidence. And so see if you're kind of more of like a swing thought or a swing feel type of player. And then review what you were doing in some of your negative rounds when things weren't going well. See how some of those thoughts have changed. Did your mind go away from what you needed to do with your task at hand and drift more into outcomes or what could happen? Or vice versa, if you're a player who had dominant pictures. Again, think about it. Think about what you were visualizing. Was it the target? Was it the ball flight? Was it, creative windows that you wanted to shape the ball through? And then also, what was happening whenever you were stressing out? Chances are you became a lot more technical and lost touch with that creative aspect or that picture or your mind's eye. And so this is a really good exercise to do, because whatever you're doing in your good rounds, that's your mental strength. You should key in on it. And if it's similar to practice, then keep repeating it and keep it simple. Simple is genius. So the world class, they keep things so simple out there. That's how they repeat it in big moments. And if you can keep stripping it down, the other things become just interference. And so keep it to one main thought. Try to get up over the ball. And one other thing that will really help kind of get more into that clear mind, if you're feeling really confident over the ball, the best thing to do is to do some breathing and use your breathing as a way to clear your mind and keep it quiet with just a soft idea about what you want to accomplish. Your breathing will help get you into more of that automated state more often, but you're never going to go wrong if you just keep it to one simple idea.
Yeah, right on. And, John, one of my favorite moments, and I'm sure you probably agree with this as a coach, is like when somebody really smashes a personal best. They really break through, they catch a milestone. And it's interesting because they always usually do it by quite a bit. So like if players trying to break 80, they don't really shoot 79. In most cases, I've always experienced they do it like a 74 or 75. Like they smash it by a lot. And then almost in every case, they kind of say that felt easy. Even going under par for the first time, like that didn't feel like it was that hard to do. And really, like you're saying, it's when we dive into that, it's because those players were just really sticking to that singular thought, and it felt easy to do because they weren't struggling and they weren't overthinking, they weren't over trying, which are two real big issues out there. It's like quicksand. The more we struggle, the more we're searching for that sense of control, the more we're sinking in. Is kind of how I describe it. So I want to just really reiterate that simplistic nature, and again, being able to do that in your practice. And one thing in practice especially that will help is always making sure that you have feedback to know you're doing what you're trying to do. Because if you start mishitting shots in practice and you start tinkering with those thoughts, you're basically training yourself to tinker on the course. And so what I mean by feedback is, if you're working on a swing path thing, to have alignment sticks to help you understand if you're getting your path off, having sticks in the ground and working on your path. I mean, I think listeners understand what I'm talking about, but just having some things in your way of, just kind of telling you, yes, I'm doing this. No, I'm not. Like, I can't stress that enough, because the more you're doing daily checks on your technique, the less you have to think about it, because it's there. And then you're just going, okay, like, what's the one thing I can boil this down to know I can execute it at a super high level. And a good way to always think about it is put yourself in the situation with hundreds of people watching and $1 million on the line. Can I pull this off with confidence? Like, if you can answer that question with a high percentage yes, then you're probably going to be able to do it in your tournaments, your college tournaments, professional tournaments, whatever it is, amateur tournaments. But that's always a way I like to put players on the spot. Like, okay, $1 million on the line, people everywhere watching you. Like, can you make that move with confidence?
Okay, so to wrap up this conversation on swing thoughts, let me first answer the question, is it good or bad? I don't think that there are bad swing thoughts. I think the only thing really bad about swing thoughts coming from a mental coaching perspective is having too many. I think what's really important is that we dive into our own individualized nature. Current research and the research that we put into with mental golf type really identifies that there are a lot of individualized nature out there in players, and that 80% of the population, when their play is modeling more of their practice, the focus band and other techniques have shown that their brain relaxes more and they perform better. So the only thing really bad about swing thoughts is if you have too many. But if you can boil it down to having a singular idea, one simple feel, or a simple job to accomplish in your golf swing, you're going to find for the majority of you out there, you're going to perform better. So once you get set up, get focused like you are in practice on putting your energy into executing that move well, and you're going to find yourself hitting a lot of your targets. And we have a simple saying for that type of player, 1 + 1 always equals 2. That when I'm aimed proper and I do this nice thing here or this one feel, it's going to have the result that I'm looking for. So Mental Golf Type, the program we're coming out with, is going to help answer these questions for players. because believe it or not, your mind is a lot more predictable than you might think. And so we're hoping to help all kinds of players identify what do they do best, help them to key in on those strategies, and also what to avoid. And some of the mental golf books out there that are real general in nature or just try to base it off of general research, they can miss the mark with a lot of players and actually cause players to have lack of performance out there rather than boosting it like the intention is. So if you're a player that likes to have a swing thought, make sure you're just keeping it down to one singular action. You're going to perform better. And understand that some players aren't going to do well with swing thoughts. And if you're a player who struggles, if you become overly technical, focus more on generating a good picture over the ball. Whether that's a picture of your ball flight or your target, you're going to find yourself performing a lot better on the course. So my big takeaway for everybody is make it a homework assignment. Go back in your history, think about how you're performing when you're on the range or on the course, and find out if you're more of a swing thought type of player or more of a picture player. And that's going to help key you in on how to take your practice and transfer it to the course a lot more often.
Well, John, those are really good points as always. And, I just want to keep reiterating what you said, that swing thoughts really aren't bad. And as much as, like we said, they can be portrayed as being bad, it's not really the worst thing. Again, it's can you get in control and can you do it with confidence? And if you can answer that with a hard yes, then you're going to be in really good shape and you're okay to do that. And I think that's really cool. And like you said, the stuff that we're coming out with MGT is like just going to be so awesome to help people understand how they are best hardwired. So we're super excited. That's coming very, very soon. So stay tuned. Watch our Instagram for that. But until then, get to work on what type of player you are from this episode, and we'll see you in the next show.